Tension continues to mount in Guyana over the delayed general election results. Venezuelans commemorated the 7th anniversary of the death of the leader of the Bolivarian Revolution, Commander Hugo Chavez. Presidents Putin and Erdogan have agreed to a ceasefire in the Syrian province of Idlib. From the headquarters of Telesur English in Havana, Cuba, this is From the South. I'm Katrina Goss. Tension is mounting in Guyana as the Elections Commission is yet to announce the results of Monday's general elections. This Thursday saw a series of accusations of attempts to tamper with results from the opposition People's Progressive Party, as well as irregularities reported by observers. A joint conference by the contesting parties in the elections is currently ongoing, and we can bring you some of the statements from the conference.
We did not say anything about how much we won by. I've been asked several times by the media to say that, although we knew from the very night, because we had our statements of all called in, etc. We refused to give numbers to the media. But there 9 regions have been declared, so we know what those numbers are. And on the basis of the declared results, we were 52,000 or so ahead of them. We then uploaded, if you see the website that we uploaded, it didn't say the PPP numbers, it says statements of poll. We just showed all the statements of poll and our tabulation. We didn't make no declaration of victory, etc. We just showed the numbers. But we said if the ordinary people look at that, they had 9 declared regions, plus they see the statements of poll for all of these regions. They themselves would see the size of the margin, and that margin was about 17,000, 18,000 votes.
And our correspondent in Guyana, Alejandro Kirk, brings us more details on the events there.
The counting stopped at midnight today, midnight last night, 00 hours today, and it never resumed. Many irregularities happened during the day. They were denounced, like spreadsheets that came with altered numbers before verification, and then strange diseases by people. The returning officer got sick, had to be taken out of the building, and for many other reasons it never resumed. And there was a very tense situation here today until mid-afternoon when the GCOM decided to declare the final results without counting the rest of the votes. So about 300 polling stations were counted for, and some other 500 were still to be verified. That didn't happen, and that made the Carter Center with his spokesman Jason Carter say that although the election day was very transparent and brilliant, the counting was more or less smooth. After that, for the other 9 regions, that ended in Region 4, and the results of this election are not credible. Those were his words. So, but he also said that this situation can be reverted overnight. A new counting was demanded by the Progressive People's Party. An injunction was sent to the GCOM by the Supreme Court. That injunction was did not reach the head of this, the chairwoman of the Electoral Committee, because she was apparently taken hostage or locked inside an office, and there was a storm. The opposition agents inside the building stormed the offices where she was taken, and we were informed that she left the building safe and on his own will. So the situation remains pretty much in the air, although the government has already claimed victory. Around here, the supporters of President David Granger are gathering around celebrating victory. And so what remains now is these judicial injunctions, recounting of vote, and probably it could be probably reverted, but it looks by recognized by the PPP, the Progressive Party officials, the situation from now on is very hard to be reverted. But the international community is looking into this. For the first time, probably the People's Progressive Party can count on the support of Western embassies and international observers. So the situation remains then unclear, and we're all expecting good developments for this country.
And in other news, at least 29 people have been killed due to floods and landslides in the Brazilian states of Sao Paulo and Rio de Janeiro. Hundreds of volunteers have joined rescue workers in a desperate search through the rubble to try to find 25 people who are still missing in the cities of Guarujá, Santos and São Vicente. Rescue efforts have been hampered by fallen trees and landslides blocking several major roads. Flooding has also affected Rio de Janeiro, where more than 5,000 people have been displaced. The latest severe weather comes after more than 50 people were killed in heavy rains that devastated the state of Minas Gerais in January. Student protests continue in Paraguay to demand the resignation of Education Minister Eduardo Peta. The National Federation of Secondary Students convened protests across the nation, denouncing the minister's mismanagement of the education system and the blocking of educational reforms. Likewise, students are also demanding budget restructuring that guarantees free public education, school meals, and greater funding for technical and vocational education programs.
You, your companions, your friends work after going to study. Why? To buy everything because you don't have enough to eat? You drop out of the education system because your parents don't work. You don't have enough to eat. And what do the authorities do? They laugh in our faces. Why? Because we keep quiet. There is no democracy. There is no democracy. There is repression in schools. There is bureaucracy.
Coming up after this break, Venezuelans mark the 7th anniversary of the death of Hugo Chavez. Don't go away. Welcome back. This March 5th marks the 7th anniversary of the death of the leader of the Bolivarian Revolution, Commander Hugo Chavez Frias. From the early morning this Thursday, Venezuelans visited the historic 4F mountain barracks, where the remains of the eternal commander of the Bolivarian Revolution rest. President Nicolas Maduro also reiterated his loyalty to the legacy of Commander Hugo Chavez, while pointed out that the path of the Venezuelan Revolution will always be guided by the ideas of Chavez. Tributes to the Venezuelan revolutionary also continue to pour in from across the world. Venezuela's Vice President of Communications, Jorge Rodriguez, revealed on Thursday details of an alleged assassination attempt against opposition lawmaker Juan Guaidó during a visit to Lara State on February 29th. Rodriguez described the allegations as a setup by Guaidó himself in order to gain international attention. On Wednesday, the president of the National Constituent Assembly, Diosdado Cabello, informed that the alleged assassination attempt was staged by those who support the opposition lawmaker and executed by a man named Climaco Medina, aka El Caracas, who received $400 for his performance. Cabello also presented a video where Guaidó's communications manager, Edward Rodriguez, could be seen planning the staged attack.
It is perfectly clear that if anyone fired any shots during that demonstration, it was Juan Guaidó's gunmen. It's perfectly clear that he's complaining about the shots fired. It is perfectly clear that they hired someone called Climaco Eric Medina to show him with the revolver and get the photo Ravel needed to once again deceive foreign media. If only they had a trace of respect for the truth.
Venezuelan Foreign Minister Jorge Rodriguez posted a statement on his Twitter account rejecting the renewal of the executive order that accuses Venezuela of being an unusual and extraordinary threat to the national security and foreign policy of the United States by US President Donald Trump. The executive order was first issued in 2015 by then-President Barack Obama and imposed sanctions against the country. Arias stressed that the order has been used to justify the series of aggressions and crimes against humanity launched by the US against the Venezuelan population. And President Nicolas Maduro also referred to the renewal of the executive order by Donald Trump.
To renew Barack Obama's infamous decree, branding Venezuela an extraordinary and unusual threat to U.S. national security. This executive order was renewed today. They chose the 5th of March for that. Welcome! Renew your decree because we every day renew our fighting spirit and moral as 21st century Bolivarians and Chavistas.
People have started boarding trains and are beginning to travel back to Wuhan, the Chinese city at the center of the coronavirus outbreak. The city of 11 million people has been largely cut off from the outside world since January 23rd, when the Chinese government started an unprecedented lockdown of central Hubei province to contain the novel coronavirus. This Thursday, China reported 31 COVID-19 deaths, bringing the total death toll to over 3,000. Chinese health authorities have also reported that more than 52,000 people have recovered from the virus. Meanwhile, almost 300 million students worldwide face weeks at home after schools were closed in more than a dozen countries to contain the virus. COVID-19 cases have been reported in some 80 countries. And 15 new coronavirus deaths were reported in Iran on Thursday, raising the death toll there to 107, while more than 3,500 cases have been confirmed. Major cultural and sporting events have been suspended in Iran and working hours reduced across the country, which is one of the worst hit outside of China. Meanwhile, schools and universities have been closed until early April. Iranian authorities have begun manning checkpoints to limit travel between major cities in order to halt the spread of the coronavirus. And the first confirmed case of the coronavirus has been identified in South Africa. The patient is a man who travelled to Italy with his wife in a group of 10 people and arrived back in South Africa on March 1st. South African Health Minister Sweli Mkhize noted that the country's health system would be tested by the coronavirus and explained that citizens quarantined in China will be returning home in the next few days.
COVID-19 virus.
The US state of California declared an emergency following its first coronavirus fatality, raising the US death toll to 11. Meanwhile, a cruise ship was quarantined off its coast after passengers and crew members developed symptoms. The US Coast Guard rushed testing kits to the cruise ship on Thursday as the number of new coronavirus cases and deaths in the United States continued to rise. 11 passengers and 10 crew members on the ship were showing symptoms on Wednesday, according to California's Governor, Gavin Newsom. Around 2,500 people are on the Grand Princess ship. One of the passengers died on Wednesday in Placer County, California, representing the first U.S. coronavirus death outside of Washington state. So far, 161 cases have been confirmed across the country. The World Health Organization warned on Thursday that several countries were not showing the level of political commitment needed to match the level of the threat we all face in regard to the novel coronavirus. The comments came as the impact of the COVID-19 virus rapidly spreads. The UK and Switzerland reported their first coronavirus deaths on Thursday, while Bosnia and South Africa confirmed their first cases. Infections are now rising faster abroad than within China, with South Korea, Iran and Italy emerging as hotspots. Italy has ordered schools and universities to shut until March 15th and reported a sharp rise in coronavirus deaths, bringing the total to 148. Elizabeth Warren has ended her Democratic presidential bid after a disappointing finish on Super Tuesday. The Massachusetts senator's campaign was overshadowed by that of Bernie Sanders. Although Warren managed to gain the support of some progressives, that did not translate to enough support from the party's more working class and diverse grassroots, as seen in the Super Tuesday primaries. The Democratic contest to take on President Donald Trump is now a two-horse race between former Vice President Joe Biden and Vermont Senator Bernie Sanders. With votes still being counted, Democrats continue to wait for the full results of the Super Tuesday primaries.
I will not be running for president in 2020, but I guarantee I will stay in the fight for the hardworking folks across this country who've gotten the short end of the stick over and over. That's been the fight of my life, and it will continue to be so. So, anyone have a question?
What guidance would you give to your
I'm sorry?
supporters who don't know who to support now?
Well, let's take a deep breath and spend a little time on that. We don't have to decide that this minute.
And I wonder what your message would
And after this break, Russia and Turkey have agreed to a ceasefire in the Syrian province of Idlib. Stay with us for more. Welcome back. Russian President Vladimir Putin and his Turkish counterpart Recep Tayyip Erdogan met in Moscow on Thursday, where they agreed to a ceasefire in the Syrian province of Idlib. After more than 6 hours of negotiations at the Kremlin, the Turkish president announced at a joint conference with Putin that the ceasefire will begin on midnight Friday. According to sources, the two countries will carry out joint patrols on the M4 highway, a strategic hub that crosses the Syrian province of Idlib. Russia and Turkey have planned a safety corridor of 6 kilometers on each side of the highway. The parameters of this area will be defined by the two countries in the next 7 days. The agreement seeks to end weeks of intense fighting in Idlib, the last terrorist stronghold in northwestern Syria, where Syrian forces have made advances against the extremists supported by Turkey. Israeli forces demolished the homes of 2 Palestinians in the occupied West Bank. Walid Hanat Sheh and Yassan Moukhamis are currently in custody and facing trial over allegations of carrying out an attack in the West Bank last year, which killed an Israeli citizen and injured another. Witnesses told local media that armed Israeli vehicles stormed into the town of Birzeit on Thursday and cordoned off the area surrounding Moukhamis' house before tearing it down. During the demolition, dozens of Palestinians confronted armed Israeli soldiers who responded by firing tear gas and stun grenades. At least 132 people have died so far this year in Nigeria due to Lassa fever, according to the National Center for Disease Control. Nigerian health authorities confirmed that 775 people have so far contracted Lassa fever, which has a case fatality ratio of 17%. A report from the Disease Control Center revealed that the number of suspected cases has significantly increased compared to that reported for the same period in 2019. Nigerian Minister of Environment Mohammed Abubakar has urged Nigerians to protect their homes from rats and other rodents which commonly spread the virus. We conclude in the Democratic Republic of the Congo, where the last patient treated for Ebola has been discharged from hospital, according to the World Health Organization. The patient was discharged from a hospital in the eastern city of Beni, where joyous scenes of celebration by medical staff were seen. This is the first time there have been no active cases since the outbreak was declared in August 2018, bringing hopes that it is nearing its end. The virus has killed over 2,200 people, making it the second worst Ebola outbreak in history. The DRC has now gone 14 days without any new confirmed cases. An outbreak can be declared as over once 42 days have passed without a single new case. And we've come to the end of this news brief. You can find these and many other stories on our website at telesurenglish.net. And join us on social media, Facebook, Twitter and Instagram. For Telesur English, I'm Katrina Goss. Thank you for watching.